In this video, I want to talk about when you should actually hire a salesperson to remove yourself if you're the founder still taking all the sales calls. Let's get it going. Welcome back, guys. Greg here. And I was actually having a conversation with one of our clients inside of our Academy program about when might it make sense to start hiring a salesperson and begin the transition out of being the founder and the owner of the business. Now, this feedback is what we've implemented and what we've helped a lot of our clients implement based off of a lot of trainings and coaches that I've worked in the past and what I've found to work for us. So are there other ways to do this? Totally. I just want to share what works for us and what has been working for our clients, and a few things to think about and to look at from a metrics perspective to make sure that, hey, is it the right time for you? And then two, to consider the transition of, okay, now you brought this person on, what does it look like? Because there actually is a cost of bringing on a salesperson. And I think most people, myself included, have overlooked in the past. And I don't want you to make this mistake because it could put you into a spiral of trying to find salespeople, which costs you more and more money, even though that the long-term benefit of having a salesperson is to make you more money. So let's start with what you should be looking for to determine, do you have enough sales calls happening to hire someone? So what we look for is, are we consistently getting at least 10 sales calls on the calendar a week? And these are marketing qualified calls. So are we having, and actually having, not just booking, because sometimes there's a no-show rate. So whatever your no-show rate is, consider that. Am I having 10 qualified sales conversations a week? So that's the first kind of trigger that I'm looking for, is that number happening? So in my business, when I was actually having 10 a week, in addition to all of the other things that I was doing, not only could I see it on my calendar, but I could feel it from an energy perspective. Now, some people love sales. I do love it, but kind of when I was going over the 10 calls, it became really exhausting and impacted some of the other areas that I'm kind of quote unquote more genius at, if you will. So do you have at least 10 qualified sales calls per week? Now, on top of that, I then layer in the question, how far out into the future are those sales calls booked? So if you have 10 this week and it's say Tuesday, how many calls do you already have scheduled next week and possibly even the week out? Now, in our business, we only allow our prospects to book calls within like a 3 to 4 day window. But when it was just me selling, I actually had to allow for a little bit more time because we had a lot of demand. So I found myself having 10 calls a week, but also oftentimes having at least 10 already booked into the next week, and sometimes a few into maybe Monday, Tuesday, sometimes Wednesday of the following week. What I needed to test was, is that sustainable? Like, are we bringing in enough leads and getting enough calls that I'm kind of trending in the fact that I have at least those 10 and that I'm still booked out? So what I did was I actually said, I'm gonna flex up my own schedule. I'm gonna go in for 30 days. I'm gonna go into sales mode and I'm gonna open up enough space on my calendar to take 20 sales calls a week. Now, is that what I wanted to do? No, but it's what I felt like I needed to do to make sure that I'd have the volume. So what this allowed me to do was open up my calendar and see that I was able to have 20 calls booked, again, very exhausting, but also that I still had calls booked above 10 the following week. And so once I went through, it was a little over a month of doing this, I could see that was common, that if I had 20 spaces open in a week, that they would fill up, and I'd also have most of the following week booked. So I was pretty confident that I'd have volume to bring someone on. So those are the two things that I looked for. Do I have at least 10? And are there, when I open and flex that space up for sales calls high enough, will that space fill with still some of my calendar in the following week filling up? That gave me the confidence that when I bring someone on, I could give them a decent amount of calls for them to hit their sales targets. This moves us to the transition. So now you bring this person on. There's a ton of training that goes on. They don't just leap into sales calls on day one. I think for our sales team, they were taking calls by the end of week 2 or the beginning of week 3, depending upon exactly what day they started. So if back to that example, we had flexed up to 20 a week. I want to give them at least 5 to 10. So I phased in their approach. Week 1, they had 5, then they went to 8, and then they went to 10. And so what I was doing, I was slowly giving them some of the calls 11 to 20 while I was still maintaining 10. What that allowed me to do is be confident in the sales that we could bring in while onboarding that person. So if I'm basically slowly delegating those top 10, I know that if I'm having 10 calls a week still, and I'm closing 40 to 50%, that we're at least bringing in 4 to 5 new clients, which is going to help us offset them learning on the job, right? They need to learn how to have these conversations. So I'm not expecting the salesperson to, be closing 100% or even really 50% right out of the gate. And as the owner, usually you'll always close higher than the salesperson. There are exceptions to the rule, but in most cases, you, the owner, will close better than a salesperson that you hire. I slowly delegated that to the point where we were split 50-50. I was taking 10, they were taking 10. We're still monitoring their success along the way, and then I kept delegating more to fill up their calendar, and they were taking 15 to 20 calls a week as well. And then I had less. So I was, over the course of 2 months, I phased myself out while making sure that the new person that came in was, closing well, doing well with clients, that there was good feedback from the prospects, etc., and that I was confident that we weren't going to lose money. Now, I mentioned losing money. In order to go from having 10 calls a week to 20, we needed to increase our ad spend to have enough leads coming through our funnel to set that up. And this is where the cost comes in, because you, depending upon what your lead flow looks like, may have to spend more money in your ad spend to create additional volume to hand off to the new salesperson while you still have enough to kind of mitigate your risk, so to speak. And so a lot of people don't account for that. In addition to the fact that they're not going to close like you do on the first handful of calls. And so you have to plan for that. So you're spending more to give them more leads to probably close less than you would have, which is why you need to mitigate your risk. So hopefully you found this helpful. Quick recap, at least 10 calls a week, flex your schedule up to be able to take 10 to 20. If you're still taking 10 to 20 with the following week having bookings, you're probably in a good spot to hire, but you also want to plan for the increased ad spend and the fact that you're going to slowly offload the number of calls this person's going to take while you get them up to speed. So you're going to kind of go from taking, 15 to 20 back down to, 10, slowly into 8, and phase yourself out as that person builds up confidence and you see their success and their close rate increasing in those early days. Now, there's a lot of different, gray area to this depending upon your situation, but from a high level, if you were thinking about hiring someone for sales, this is the feedback that I would give you. It's what we've used. It's what a lot of our clients have used to start removing themselves confidently from the sales process. If you found this useful, go ahead and click subscribe. We release a new video each and every week. And if you want actual training or additional training from the weekly videos here on YouTube, check out our description. We have a link to join our free Facebook group if you're an agency owner and or a small service-based business that's looking to grow and scale. We hope to see you there.